Hello and welcome to WION Gravitas. Tonight on the show, we're going to be looking at two very important stories. One in Europe, where there is a troop build-up in Europe across the lines. On the Russian side, there are almost 30,000 troops that are out there. On the side of Germany and on the side of the Eastern Europe and Estonia, there are about 6,000 troops. The challenge is that those troops are further seeing a build-up. Most countries are sending in some of their troops in there, and that is a worrying factor. The other story is closer to us here in Kerala. We're seeing that a lot of the ISIS is involved in trying to bring people together and trying to make sure that they can recruit people in Kerala. WION's Ramesh Ramachandran went out to Kerala to try and understand what's happening on the ground, in spite of all the education, in spite of all the progressive existence of Malayalis. How come there is a sudden resurgence in ISIS, people being recruited from Kerala? Here is a look at that story.
Lush green landscape, stunning beaches, scenic backwaters, and mountain treks. Kerala is a tourist's delight. The Association of British Travel Agents ranks it 8th among 12 destinations in 2017, higher than the United States, Italy, South Africa, and Vietnam. But there's trouble brewing in paradise. Padanna is a sleepy little hamlet tucked away in a corner of the southern Indian state of Kerala. You could easily miss it on a map. But this town has gained notoriety of late for sending youths, men and women, in large numbers to join the ranks of the so-called Islamic State in Syria and Iraq. Mubaris is your average middle-class boy in t-shirt and jeans. He loves football and enjoys hanging out with friends. Born into a Muslim family, Mubaris and his siblings received modern education. Like their late father, Mubaris's elder brother Murshid landed a job in West Asia too. All was well until June 2016, when Murshid and 21 other young men and women from Kerala left their homes to join the Islamic State. According to various studies, a large number of IS recruits come from countries where Muslims have by and large remained culturally isolated. But India and certainly Kerala would not fall in that category because they enjoy a syncretic tradition, a culture of assimilation. So what is it about Kerala that makes it so vulnerable to this combustible mix, as it were, of religion and virulent ideology? Padanna is not exactly America's Wild West. In fact, far from it. Like the rest of Kerala, the village enjoys a high literacy rate and a great degree of civic consciousness too. It also boasts of high social development indices, particularly when it comes to the status of women and social welfare programs. Over the years, people from these parts have traveled abroad, especially to West Asia, where they established successful careers or businesses. Remittances play a big role in Kerala's economy. In 2015, people from Kerala repatriated more than $14 billion. The people of Padanna are as bewildered as they are hurt by repeated references to their village as a fertile recruiting ground for the Islamic State. Some doubt whether their youth indeed joined the Islamic State. Others claim that some of the messages sent by them to their families suggest that they had reached the land of Islam. For their part, the elders of the Muslim community are reticent and resent being seen as the other. They certainly don't welcome the prying eyes of the media. However, Mubaris's friend Riaz says those who allegedly joined the ranks of the Islamic State might have been motivated by a desire to practice the doctrine of Salafism voluntarily, not out of coercion.
പൈസക്ക് വേണ്ടിയിട്ടൊന്നുമല്ല. കാരണം വെച്ചാൽ ഇവിടെ ഇങ്ങനെ കളിച്ച് നടന്ന പിള്ളേരാണത്. വളരെ ചെറിയ പ്രായമാണ്. പഠിച്ചിന് ബാംഗ്ലൂർ, മുംബൈ. ഇതെല്ലാം ജോയിൻ ആയത് എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ പിന്നെ ഇവിടുന്നല്ല. ഇതിൻ്റെ ഉറവിടം എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ മെയിൻ മുംബൈ, പിന്നെ ബാംഗ്ലൂർ അതേ സ്റ്റേജിൽ കളിച്ച് നടന്ന പിള്ളേരാണ്. പിന്നെ ഒരു ടൈമിന് പിന്നെ പിള്ളേർ വന്ന് നമ്മളെല്ലാം കുറച്ച് റെസ്പെക്റ്റ് ചെയ്യുന്ന പിള്ളേരാണ്, നമ്മളെ അനുജന്മാരാണ് അതൊക്കെ. അപ്പോൾ അതിന് ശേഷമാണ് പിന്നെ ഒരു മാറ്റം വരുന്നത്, സ്ഥിരമായി പള്ളിയിൽ പോകുന്നു.
What is confounding is that all the young men and women were in their 20s or 30s, and some had degrees in engineering, medicine, or management with well-paying jobs.
These people are not having any such a political or religious affiliation or association. That is what is we are having some strange situation in the present case of these absconding of these youths, and they are joining with IS.
Padanna is still coming to terms with the situation. There are no easy answers yet to some of the questions swirling in Mubarak's mind. For a state that prides itself on being called God's own country, the quest for understanding man's relationship, or the lack of it, with God has taken a curious turn. Ramesh Ramachandran, WION.
It's surprising to see that from a state which has such high literacy rates and certainly considered progressive, to have such a large number of people land up in the clutches of the IS. To try and understand this better, we're joined in the studios by Ramesh Ramachandran, our senior correspondent. Ramesh, you met some of these families whose children had decided to join the IS. Explain to me, what is the sense you got from them? What was their justification on how their children land up becoming part of the IS?
Rohit, the tragedy is that the families can't seem to explain how it all happened. They were all well-educated young men and women in their 20s and 30s. They had a good modern education, secular education. They had decent jobs, well-paying jobs at that. So there's no plausible reason why they should have done what they did. But yet we see that 20-odd young men and women have actually left their homes to join the Islamic State. And some of these families, these youths were the sole bread earners for their family. They have siblings. So I met some of these families. The mothers were completely dejected, shattered, because they can't seem to explain why it all happened. So they are in a mix of bewilderment as well as hurt, because they really didn't see it coming and they didn't expect their elder child, as it were, to do what they did.
When we look at this, the numbers are not that large at the moment, but 25, 30 is significant. Do you think this is a challenge at India's doorstep? Should India already be worried that a lot of these children are going to land up going to these Islamic wars?
Indeed, you're correct, Rohit. In absolute terms, the number might be minuscule, and also as a percentage of India's population, they would be very negligible. But the fact remains that they do pose a serious threat to security, not only in Kerala, but at the national level as well. But that said, the number of the recruits from Kerala is the largest among all the Indians put together. So that is a cause for worry indeed for the security agencies, especially given the fact that some of them have since been traced to Afghanistan, which is even a bigger worry for India, because Afghanistan is a playground for the Taliban as well as for the Pakistani agencies. So that's an even bigger cause for worry.
But these 25, 30, whatever the number is, they can actually land up recruiting more from here, and that would be even a bigger challenge, possibly.
Absolutely. The threat is more from the virulent ideology, as it were. The number of Indian recruits might be negligible, but the ideology remains very potent and very attractive for a large number of youths, especially in Kerala and in the neighborhood. And the challenge before the Indian government, the Indian society at large, is to combat this menace, as it were, from the root, and to sort of present an alternative to these youths who might have strayed down that path.
Ramesh, stay with us. We want to continue having a discussion about this, because certainly it's a big challenge on how the Indian intelligence and the administration is going to deal with this. It is going to be a challenge to see how young children from India are going to be going to different parts of the world and becoming part of the terrorism paraphernalia. Let me get in our guest tonight, Jayanti Datta, She's a psychologist. She joins us over the phone line from Delhi. And also Dr. Sohail. He's a professor of Arabic Studies at the University of Kerala. Thank you both for joining me on the show. Let me start by asking you, Sohail. You know this constituency. We're talking about typically young people of Kerala with dreams to do big. What would make them take this extreme path and join an organization like the IS?
Hello, sir. Hello, everybody. Actually, it is unfortunate that, at least for Kerala, our nation, it is a biggest threat to humanity, including Islam.
We'll try connecting with you again, sir. The technical, we're getting a feedback from you. So we'll come back to you. Jayanti, could you please explain to me this trend? Does this trend strike you as unusual?
Yeah. The thing is, when this kind of situation arises, one ought to take into consideration the psychosocial dynamism behind. Now, all these youngsters, at whatever level they have reached, they mostly come from impoverished backgrounds, and they have a very low self-esteem. In spite of their professional stature, they do suffer from this kind of a low self-esteem, and they are the vulnerable group, who can be brainwashed in the name of religion, in the name of grandiose achievement anytime. And these are a very small group, but they get brainwashed by the so-called stalwarts from the religious fields. And, they don't leave any stone unturned to kill their rational thinking. So in the name of God, when they are promised that these are the magnanimous kind of achievement you will achieve, you will be the hero in front of everyone, and you will be united with the God. Nobody has seen the God, but in the name of God, these are the people who misguide the youngsters, the vulnerable ones, and they land up in a scenario when they cannot come back.
Ms. Datta,
so this is the situation. I think this is a very sad scenario where government should really take very strong steps to deter these kind of people who brainwash these youngsters and, sort of misguide them in the name of the God.
Sure. Ms. Datta, to dissect the young mind for us, no apparent reason, how are these so-called recruiters and their campaign becoming so effective in brainwashing these young children? And some of them actually come from fairly educated backgrounds. I was talking to one of the people who was involved and who saw an engineering student go. She was from a good family. She was from a well-to-do family. So how are the recruiters getting so successful?
No, but that doesn't make any difference. They still have that low self-esteem, and they are still hankering for that kind of idealism, that kind of hero worshipping, which they get in the name of serving the God directly, in the name of serving the religion, and then they're willing to even sacrifice themselves because they don't really have that kind of gripping realization or self-identity, So they are the vulnerable groups who get swayed by this kind of preaching, and they are all given the same kind of misguided informations. And then there is a bonding with the peer group, if you follow it up, you will see that once you get inducted into it, you get a real support from the rest of the people who are in that group. But when you really need the support, you don't get it.
Sure. Thank you. Dr. Sohail, we have been reconnected. Let's try this. You know this constituency well, the students we are talking about. Explain to us, in spite of all the big dreams, how do these people, these young children, become a target of these organizations?
Actually, I don't have, clear idea about all these happenings. Still, I can say one thing, that if the people are, indulged in kind of activity, it is unfortunate for our nation. Thing is that Islam never advocates this kind of activity. How these people have, entered into this so-called group. Actually, they do not have the idea about India.
Sure.
The idea about Kerala, because it's long been an abode for all Semitic religions.
All right. Absolutely. The challenge is to be able to understand how these recruiters approach some of these young children here and are able to use social media and is able to recruit some of these students. Let's continue to talk more about this in just a bit. I request you to stay with me. Let me take this story further. So how deep and wide is the Islamic State's footprint in Kerala? The police are already suspecting firmly entrenched recruiters who are making this happen. Ramesh talked to some of these people to try and understand how this all unfolds.
On January 5, police in the southern state of Kerala raided a chain of schools run by Islamic preacher M.M. Akbar. His Peace Educational Foundation describes itself as a, quote, Muslim initiative standing for a paradigm shift in the field of education, unquote. According to local media reports, Akbar is suspected of having links with some Indian nationals who either joined the Islamic State or recruited people to its ranks. The schools are also accused of teaching 6 or 7-year-olds objectionable content from outside the prescribed curriculum or textbooks. Last month, the police apprehended the publishers of the textbook. Akbar and his chain of schools are only one link in the jigsaw puzzle that is the spread of Islamic State's tentacles in Kerala. The other dramatis personae are Abdul Rashid Abdullah, who is described as the main recruiter for the Islamic State in Kerala; Sonia Sebastian alias Aisha, Rashid's first wife, who was born a Christian but converted to Islam after marrying Rashid, who disappeared with her daughter Sarah; Yasmin, who hails from the northern Indian state of Bihar but married Rashid after they together worked at a peace school in Kerala. Yasmin was arrested from Delhi in 2016. Sajir Abdullah Mangalasheri, an engineering graduate from the National Institute of Technology at Kozhikode, a city in North Kerala; Beksin Vincent alias Isa, an MBA; and Nimisha alias Fatima, who was born a Hindu but converted to Islam after marrying Vincent. The number of Indians who might have joined the Islamic State is fewer than 100. So in absolute terms and also as a percentage of India's population, their number is minuscule as compared to some of the countries of the world. But it poses a security threat nevertheless. But what is causing more anxiety among some in India is that a majority of them come from the southern Indian state of Kerala, and many of them have since relocated from Syria and Iraq to Afghanistan, where the Taliban and the Pakistani deep state are active. According to some Indian media reports, Indian intelligence agencies have traced some of these young people to Afghanistan's eastern province of Nangarhar, bordering Pakistan. Our quest for information led us to the Chandera police station in Kasaragod district, where the police share the names of more youths from adjoining areas who allegedly joined the Islamic State. At least 11 of the 22 youths from Kerala who joined the terrorist group belong to Padanna or the nearby villages. All of them disappeared within a span of a few months in 2016, all allegedly recruited by Rashid. Muhammad Marwan, Hafizuddin TK, Firoz Khan, P. Ashfaq, Shamsia and their 18-month-old daughter Aisha, Muhammad Mansad, Dr. Ijaz, his wife Rifaila and their 2-year-old child Hayan, Ijaz's brother Shihaz and his wife Ajmala, and Murshid Muhammad, a resident of Haidar Villa in Padanna, who was profiled in the earlier story. Kerala has a long tradition of Renaissance movements among all communities, including Muslims. The Mujahid movement is a good example. Some of the Islamic State's recruits from Kerala were said to have been disillusioned with the movement's progressive agenda and sought a more ultra-conservative version of Islam, especially that advocated by the Islamic State, which, among others, talks about hijr or obligation to migrate to lands under the rule of Islam and to perform jihad for the establishment of a caliphate. Some of the other organizations active in Kerala are Kerala Nadwatul Mujahideen, which was established in 1950, and the Jamaat-e-Islami. And already there are calls for moderating their influence.
ഏതെങ്കിലും ഒരു മുസ്ലിം സംഘടനകൾ സ്ഥാപനങ്ങൾ നടത്തുന്നത് എല്ലാം ഇത്തരം തീവ്രവാദപരമായ ചിന്താഗതി വളർത്തിയെടുക്കാനുള്ള രീതിയിലേക്ക് പ്രോത്സാഹിപ്പിക്കുന്ന നിലപാടോ അഭിപ്രായം എന്നെ സംബന്ധിച്ചിടത്തോളം ഇല്ല. പക്ഷേ ദൗർഭാഗ്യകരമായി ചില അത്തരം സ്ഥാപനങ്ങളിൽ പങ്കെടുക്കുന്ന അതുമായി ബന്ധപ്പെട്ട ആളുകളാണ് ഇതിലേക്ക് വഴിതെറ്റി പോയിട്ടുള്ളത്. അത് അത്തരം സംഘടനകളെ അടക്കം വിളിച്ച് ബോധവൽക്കരിക്കാനുള്ള ശക്തമായ ശ്രമം സമൂഹത്തിൻ്റെ ഭാഗത്ത് നിന്ന് ഉണ്ടാവണം. ആണ് അതിൻ്റെ ഏറ്റവും പ്രധാനപ്പെട്ട കാര്യം.
Clearly, radicalization of youths in Kerala and elsewhere in India poses a clear and present danger. Easy availability of jihadi literature on social media and the internet is only compounding the woes of the Indian government. The arrest of 24-year-old Mehdi Masroor Biswas, an engineer from Bengaluru, is a case in point. Biswas was arrested in 2014 after it became known that he was operating an Islamic State Twitter account called Shami Witness. Ramesh Ramachandran, WION.
The story is no different, whether you look at the story in Pakistan, in Kashmir, Kerala, the Middle East, the challenge remains the same. There is a large group of people that look at the ideology of creating a caliphate to create pure Islamic states and then house as many Islamic people inside it, and nobody else needs to live inside them because they're kafirs. The challenge that most of these places face is that nobody else who already is there is willing to buy that ideology. And or to all the terrorist groups that personally spoken to, they've clearly said that we cannot reach the day of resurrection until the states become clearly Islamic. Now, looking at the story which Ramesh filed, one wonders whether this is happening by default, or is it happening just by coincidence, or is there really a well-planned strategy behind this, Ramesh?
Rohit, all of this cannot be seen in isolation. There's definitely a more sinister pattern than what one would have imagined or anticipated, because these are ordinary 20-year-olds, 30-year-old young men and women, educated boys and girls, and they had no political or religious affiliation before they did what they did. So the question arises, what prompted them or motivated them? Could it be money? Could it be unemployment? Could it be politics? None of these criteria actually qualify for what they did. So the only plausible explanation is that they voluntarily opted to follow the path of pure Islam as the Islamic State advocates. Why they did, how they did, remains to be answered. But for now, the challenge is before the Indian government especially is to counter or combat this radicalization, because this virulent ideology is threatening to spread all across the country and beyond. So that is something one needs to look at very carefully.
Absolutely. Looking at the challenge of seeing how there has to be a strategy for the rest of the world, need to understand that how a certain side of the faith is trying to overtake the rest of it. It's not as if the whole world, which is Islamic, is standing up for this ideology. This is a specific group of the Islamists who are promoting that in the world all that there needs to be is Islam for them to reach the day of resurrection, and that in itself is a challenge. Now let us now just step back and look at the larger picture of India. How serious is the ISIS threat in India, and what are the profiles of some of those who've landed in the security net so far? Raghavendra Rao goes through case files to bring you this report.
In November 2016, India's Ministry of Home Affairs informed the Parliament that as many as 68 ISIS supporters and sympathizers had been arrested by either the National Investigation Agency, the NIA, or state security agencies. 50 of these people were arrested by the state police forces during 2016 itself.
The Home Ministry also said that while some persons have been reported missing from some parts of Kerala
and are suspected to have joined terror outfits like the ISIS. Their links with ISIS have not yet been established conclusively. Kerala police, though, has registered as many as 9 cases in this connection. Last year, Maharashtra and Telangana led the number of ISIS-related arrests with 11. Karnataka had 7, while Kerala had 6. Uttarakhand had 4. Tamil Nadu and West Bengal, among others, had 2 each. Jammu and Kashmir had only 1. But more than the numbers, it is the profiles and backgrounds of some of those arrested that have the security agencies intrigued. Consider these. 23-year-old Muhammad Nasir was known as a web and graphics designer until his arrest in December 2015. He was charged with conspiring to recruit Muslim youth in India to join the ISIS. His plans included moving new recruits to Iraq and Syria to train them to commit terror attacks. Then there is the case of grocery shop owner Muhammad Musiuddin, held for plotting terror attacks. Ibrahim Yazdani was arrested in Hyderabad last year for preparing improvised explosive devices guided by a handler in Iraq. Muhammad Ataullah Rahman, in the garb of an English language trainer in Hyderabad, was the religious motivator of a group which under ISIS instructions was plotting terror strikes in Hyderabad. In all these cases, incriminating documents, firearms, cell phones and laptops were recovered. Most of those arrested had scouted for information about ISIS on platforms like Twitter and Facebook. They used encrypted applications like Telegram and ChatSecure to evade detection. In New Delhi, Raghavendra Rao, WION.
Raghavendra Rao joins us live out of the newsroom. Raghavendra, Kerala story is one that seems to be playing out nationally. Many similar stories about mainstream youth sympathizing with the ISIS for no apparent reason. What's your reading of the situation? What is the Home Ministry telling you?
Rohit, investigators who are looking into the arrests of all these youth who are accused of having joined ISIS at some stage are still intrigued by the very fact that the variety of backgrounds from which these youth come from, there are no easy answers available as of now as to what was their motivation, what was the provocation for them to try and leave their homes and try and go to some other land and join the ISIS. But one common thread which seems to be running through most of the arrests and the people who are in custody now is the one which relates to the use of social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and several other web platforms. It is there where the investigators believe that it is through these platforms that most of these youngsters, most of these youth got the information about ISIS. They got to read about ISIS, the motivations of ISIS, what ISIS is all about, and it is all of these which prompted these men to try and attempt going out of the country and join this cause.
Thank you, Raghavendra. Thank you, Ramesh. I know we're going to continue to follow this story because it is the story of many young students around the world. It's essential that we look at this very closely. The security agencies need to look at this very closely. We're going to take a short break on Gravitas now. When we return, the build-up of NATO troops on the Eastern European border and an even bigger assembling of Russian troops on the other side. We'll discuss that when we return. Stay with us on Gravitas. We'll be right back.